Welcome to another Chrono College Quickie. Here you will learn everything worth knowing about chronobiology. And as the name already suggests, we keep things short, concise and to the point. Today, why daylight saving time harms us. My name is Michael Whedon, and since 2002 my passion has been science-based chronobiology and finding ways to make its enormous potential usable for our society and economy. Today I will show you very briefly and concisely, and above all on a scientifically sound basis, why daylight saving time, and especially making it permanent, can become harmful to most people in the long term. In the previous Chrono Quickies I have already introduced and explained the different chronotypes to you. As an example, we will now take a female student with the chronotype intermediate type and call her Eva. Intermediate types make up almost 60% of population. On this timeline we now place Eva's biological and genetically determined sleep window during standard time, according to her internal clock. Eva therefore falls asleep at around midnight and wakes up at around 8 o'clock in the morning. You already know DILMO from one of my previous quickies. It is the point at which melatonin secretion rises above a certain threshold. It marks the beginning of the period of tiredness leading up to falling asleep, which lasts around 2 to 2.5 hours. Eva therefore starts to feel tired at around 9:30 p.m. Eva's school starts at 8 a.m. in the morning, exactly at the time when she would naturally wake up. Because Eva lives in the countryside, she already has to be woken at 6 a.m. in order to arrive on time start. This initially leaves her with a sleep deficit of 2 hours. To compensate for this to some extent, she would have to be asleep by at the latest 10 p.m. This is where the problem already becomes apparent. Unless Eva is already sleep deprived, she will have difficulty falling asleep at 10 p.m. because not enough melatonin has been released yet. This problem affects all intermediate types, even during standard time, and it affects late types much more severely. What happens during daylight saving time? The clocks are moved forward by 1 hour. This means that 1 entire hour is simply skipped. What was 8 a.m. on the previous day is now 9 a.m. The internal clock, however, does not care how we measure time. It continues ticking according to its genetic programming. According to the clock time during daylight saving time, Eva's biological sleep window is now between 1 a.m. and 9 a.m. School and work starting times do not change. They remain exactly the same, and so does Eva's school starting time. However, this now means that school starts 1 hour before the end of her biological sleep window. Her sleep deficit is therefore no longer 2 hours. It is now 3 hours. And the same applies here. To compensate for this to some extent, Eva would still have to fall asleep at 10 p.m. However, this would now be 3 hours before the beginning of her biological sleep window. If Eva tries to fall asleep at 10 p.m., she is now trying to do so before her natural rise in melatonin has even begun. In other words, before DILMO. This is only possible if she has built up enough sleep pressure or with sleep-inducing medication or other sleep-promoting aids. There is another factor, and this is the paradox of daylight saving time. The whole purpose of daylight saving time is to allow us to stay awake for longer in the evening. This means that any attempt to compensate for the morning sleep deficit is directly undermined by the desire to stay up later. Put simply, Eva has a choice: enough sleep or longer summer evenings. Without some form of assistance, she cannot have both. But what makes sleep deprivation so harmful? Sleep serves our physical and mental regeneration. Here you can see an average sleep profile of a healthy person. The individual sleep stages are divided into light sleep, several periods of deep sleep, and REM sleep. During the night we pass through all of these stages several times, although their intensity changes. At the beginning of the night, long and deep periods of deep sleep dominate. As sleep continues, these periods become shorter, while the REM sleep phases become longer. During REM sleep, it is mainly the mind and psyche that regenerate, and what we have learned is consolidated in our memory. This graph clearly shows that this happens mainly during the second half of our sleep. If Eva is woken by her alarm at 6 a.m. during daylight saving time, she cannot complete her sleep. This means that sleep can no longer continue its regenerative work. The earlier the alarm goes off, the larger the proportion of REM sleep that is cut short. It now becomes clear that this has a strong impact on the psyche and on the ability to remember what has been learned. Even when the body itself appears to be physically rested, the psyche is still, to a large extent, not fully regenerated. The body can compensate for this in the short term. In the long term, however, it can lead not only to physical problems, but especially to psychological ones. It is also important to remember that our work is becoming increasingly mental rather than physical, and this trend will continue in the future. The gap between the amount of recovery we need and the actual time made available for it is therefore continuing to widen significantly. This is why the argument, "it didn't harm us in the past either," misses the point. Anyone who wants well-rested knowledge workers in the future has to allow them to get enough sleep. Learning. Daylight saving time is especially harmful to normal and late times. Making it permanent would have long-term consequences for the health of many people and therefore for the economy as a whole. If the subject of chronobiology interests you and you would like to know more, subscribe to my channel. Here you will find short quickies that are scientifically sound and easy to understand. And if you don't want to miss anything, activate the notification bell. Do you have any questions? Write them in the comments. I will reply to them, or I will create quickies about them if it is an interesting question that has not yet been covered in one of my quickies. In the text below you will find my website with more information about me and my work, as well as a link to our shop and the services we offer. I wish you a well-rested day and stay in rhythm.